Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering total meltdown as colleges ban diversity, equity, and inclusion nationwide. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from the Daily Caller. Corrosive to academic freedom, these states might get rid of diversity programs this year. From CNN.com, DEI programs in universities are being cut across the country. What does this mean for higher education? From Diginomica.com, the death of DEI? Why 2024 is shaping up to be a pivotal year for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the tech sector. From the Orlando Sentinel, commentary, how universities can find diversity in a post-affirmative action world. From the Financial Times, businesses started to think more about ROI than DEI. American companies are changing their approach to diversity and inclusion. And from Forbes, one of the silliest articles I've ever seen on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I have seen probably hundreds of them by now. From Forbes, diversity in leadership increases chances of success by 39%. 39%? Wait a minute. Success of what? What do you mean? We're going to look into this article, and I don't like to beat up on writers, but this article really shows how absolutely non-productive and ridiculous diversity, equity, and inclusion is. Of course, the author has her own consulting business, so she's out there promoting her business while she writes this article, but this is what you get if you invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion, apparently. A pile of $1 million in cash and a chance to have success increase in apparently anything that you're doing just by 39%. By the way, you would think if success would actually increase by 39%, you wouldn't have to make much of a case. You just say, oh, wow, everyone's recommending this. Look at all these testimonials and great examples of success. But we will get back to that article. From the Daily Caller, corrosive to academic freedom, these states might get rid of diversity programs this year. Legislators introduced several bills in January 2024 aiming to outlaw diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in educational institutions in states across the United States. Colleges and universities often use diversity statements, which require professors to say how they will advance DEI in their schools, and many schools require mandatory DEI trainings for faculty. So if you work there, you're forced to go through this training. Several states have outlawed the use of DEI in public universities, including Texas and Florida. And now several more states have introduced bills to address DEI, including South Carolina, Indiana, and Kentucky. Quote, campus DEI bureaucracies threaten student and faculty speech rights. Those offices are used to advance a campus orthodoxy and stifle free speech and academic freedom. DEI statements, which are used to weed out dissenting views among students and faculty, function as a de facto political litmus test and are unconstitutional. According to Tyler Coward, lead counsel of government affairs for the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a free speech legal organization, as told to the Daily Caller. Kentucky's bill would ban public universities from requiring students and faculty to endorse divisive concepts, and also from having to take part in mandatory trainings teaching those concepts. It aims to ban diversity statements that require students or faculty to endorse ideological or political viewpoints to be eligible for hiring or graduating. The bill also bans race-based scholarships and would give persons affected by violations of the law the right to sue the institution for damages of between $1,000 and $100,000 per violation. Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear could veto the law, but Republicans have enough power to override it with a supermajority in the state. Another bill in South Carolina also takes aim at DEI programs and diversity statements. House Bill 4663 would outlaw compelling, requiring, inducing, or soliciting any person to provide a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement or giving preference to anyone who has provided a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. The bill would also outlaw the creation of DEI offices at state institutions, including universities, and would require existing DEI offices to be shut down. They've already shut them down in Texas. The bill says if a violation is found, the institution has 180 days for the violation to be rectified. And after that, the state treasurer will withhold monetary distributions to that department or office. So they'll be completely defunded if they don't cut it out with the DEI nonsense. DEI is antithetical to the principles of American government, to the ideas that must undergird any functional society, and ultimately DEI undermines the fabric of our communities, Republican South Carolina State Rep. Thomas Beach, the author of the bill, told the Daily Caller. Quote, I have seen both at the local level in public schools these ideas being spread to young children, but also at the university level at Clemson and USC. Both are wrong. Ultimately, I believe that schools that spread this ideology should receive no government funding, Beach continued. Republican Indiana State Senator Tyler Johnson introduced a similar bill January 9th in his state. The bill prohibits state educational institutions from penalizing or discriminating against students or employees of the institution that refuse to support divisive concepts. The divisive concepts include teaching that individuals should receive different treatment because of their race or sex. One race or sex is inferior or superior to others, and that the United States or Indiana is inherently racist or sexist, among other things. Another legislator in Ohio is also looking at outlawing DEI and is planning to present a bill soon. Quote, DEI offices are organized efforts to discriminate and should be ended. Title IX and the Civil Rights Act don't require DEI offices, Republican Idaho State Senator Brian Lenny told the Daily Caller. Quote, for example, Boise State Student Equity Center, which claims to model diversity and advocate for equity, hosts several racially discriminatory graduation ceremonies, including Black Excellence Stole Celebration for Black students, LGBT-only graduation ceremonies, and the Latinx Stole Celebration for Latinx students. Several university faculty members have argued that DEI practices crush academic freedom on campuses. Others have said it's causing campuses to become inhospitable to free speech and results in ideological conformity at schools. One psychology professor at Rutgers University, Lee Jussim, said that states have the right to outlaw DEI since he believes it violates academic freedom and civil rights. Quote, states have the legitimate right to organize their state universities around whatever principles they deem best, as long as they violate neither U.S. law nor individual faculty academic freedom, Justin told the Daily Caller. Quote, in general, because I also believe that in the real world, as opposed to the ideals of some of the advocates. DEI functions to advance what I believe is illegal discrimination based mostly on U.S. civil rights law protections and is also corrosive to academic freedom, institutional neutrality, and merit-based systems. Banning them is probably the lesser of two evils, Justin continued. But Coward warned that legislatures may violate the First Amendment and impinge academic freedom by limiting DEI on campuses. But we've consistently told legislators that when dealing with the excesses of campus DEI bureaucracy, the government cannot ban DEI-related concepts from being taught or discussed on campus, Coward told the Daily Caller. Businesses are becoming aware, and they know DEI efforts are going to be challenged in court, one after another, and they've been scaling back on them. From the Financial Times, business is starting to think more about ROI than DEI. Several days ago, over the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend in the U.S., a Big Four accounting firm announced that it would be dropping some of its diversity targets in the U.S. Race-based criteria would no longer be used for awarding scholarships or places on an internship program. It was odd timing for the announcement because of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, but it is part of a larger American trend. Since the Supreme Court decision last June to reverse affirmative action, many companies are rethinking their DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. Over the past decade, following the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement and then accelerating in the wake of the 2020 death of George Floyd, companies jumped on the DEI bandwagon, as Diana Scott, head of the Human Capital Center at the Conference Board, puts it. Businesses spent hundreds of millions of dollars on big diversity initiatives, unconscious bias training, and PR campaigns linked to identity politics. Quote, but they didn't think things through very well, Scott says. What does all of this really mean? What's the business case? Can we quantify it? Literally, businesses went out and spent hundreds of millions of dollars, took chances in their business by distracting all of their staff, all of their frontline people, all of the managers, to tell them, no, stop doing your work. Focus on this. This is important. Literally with no business case in place. The business case is when they say, okay, we're going to invest $1. Why are we investing this $1? What are we expecting to get back from this $1? No business case whatsoever, no justification for spending the money and doing that distracting activity. Now, Scott says, and other DEI experts, not only are the same conservative activists who push back on so-called campus wokeness filing legal suits against companies' DEI programs, but boards are asking for the results of these programs. And in many cases, companies can't quantify them. Don't worry, we'll quantify them in this Forbes article in just a minute. Of course they can't be quantified. It was a waste of money. That you can quantify. When you can't show a return on investment for an investment, that is quantified. It's a waste of money. This reflects something that has become endemic in many workplaces over the past 5 years. An uncritical attitude towards inclusion without clear fact-based communication about the metrics that really matter. Engagement, retention, promotional strategies, leadership pipelines, and crucially, clarity on how all of this relates to the core business objectives of the company. Another email from HR about happy hour to celebrate a particular identity day is not enough. Things are about to change. Not only has the legal landscape in the US shifted, but the cultural winds are changing direction too. The ousting at the beginning of January of Claudine, the first black Harvard University president, amid concerns about anti-Semitism on campus and massive plagiarism allegations, was a significant moment. Her support of DEI policies has also fueled much of the criticism from the right. What's more, the current economic volatility and uncertainty has business leaders thinking more about return on investment than diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's predictable. When chief executives sense the possibility of a business slowdown, they tend to focus on their core business propositions. You would think they might want to focus on their business propositions in the first place. That's what they're doing at the company. Get a return on investment. Take care of your customers. While this doesn't mean companies are dumping their diversity programs altogether, not a single respondent in a recent conference board study said they are scaling back DEI in 2024. They are clearly changing their approach. Quotas, always contentious and now legally dubious, are out. Clear board-ready metrics are in. This could actually be good for inclusion in the long run. One of the things that will be front and center as companies continue to grapple with inflation is how to get and keep the best talent in a very tight labor market. That will in turn force them to move on from merely performative activity and do some real soul searching about how to deliver diversity. But there will be accountability because over time, every investment that a company makes, whether in a person or in equipment or in a manufacturing plant or in advertising, it doesn't matter what it is. Every investment must have some accountability for what the return on investment is. You can avoid it for a little while, but eventually it always gets uncovered, and that's what's happening now. However, if you'd like to just increase your chances of success by 39%, that is the number, all you have to do is have diversity in your leadership, according to Forbes. New McKinsey research reconfirms past studies on the strong business case for diversity and inclusion. According to the latest Diversity Matters Even More report, there is a 39% increased likelihood of outperformance for those in the top quartile of ethnic and gender representation versus the bottom quartile. Conversely, the risk of not having diversity on your leadership team is immense. Those companies lacking diverse representation are likely to be 30% lower in their performance versus their industry peers. HR Dive finds that companies that prioritize diversity and inclusion are 12 times more likely to engage and retain employees, 8.4 times more likely to inspire a sense of belonging. And you can take that sense of belonging right to the bank. Just don't deposit it because it's not actually a check. 8.5 times more likely to satisfy and retain customers. Okay, that is completely ridiculous. Based on what? The business case for diversity has existed for decades. Now, as you know, in a more serious publication and a more serious article, we just covered from the Financial Times that there was no business case. The business case has not been in place for decades. The nonsense case has been in place for decades. It doesn't matter what you look like, what your gender is, what your sexual preference is. Even if you're highly qualified and you're really good at what you do, it doesn't mean that an organization needs what you actually do. Merit is only the beginning of a successful career. It is the beginning, but it's only the beginning. Past that point, you have to go where you're valued. And that is what's so destructive and offensive about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It prevents people from moving on with their lives and figuring out what their actual applicable talents are so they can plan out a career and a good life. It's going to prevent people from being able to even form families and enjoy what's most important about life, no matter what they even look like, or what their gender is or their preferences are. It's a completely destructive ideology. Okay, but let's find out what's holding organizations back. Mistrust, fear, and lack of education continue to hold organizations back because most C-suites, that means at the corporate level, CEO, CFO, COO, are composed of white males. Yes, white males. It's all their fault, obviously. There's also a lack of understanding of diversity and inclusion issues due to their own limited lived experiences. This is further backed by consumer mistrust, wherein 75% of U.S. consumers mistrust companies' DEI commitments. I don't think you could find 5% of U.S. consumers who care about any commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion unless it's to boycott the company like Target or Bud Light or Disney. Due to the lack of accountability, with 76% of companies having no diversity and inclusion goals, employees don't see real value in diversity and inclusion programs. This is often not because of the programs themselves, but due to the real lack of accountability. Yes, it is because of the programs themselves. These are nonsense programs. Everyone should try to get as far away from these programs as possible. If you happen to be someone who fits into the diversity, equity, and inclusion box, don't allow your future to be determined by these people with an ideological agenda. This is a fad. It's disappearing as we speak. And in the future, everyone will be held accountable for merit, their reputation, their ability to network, and their ability to know how to go where they're needed and where they're wanted. Even the best skilled people don't belong at every company in every situation. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.